Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself transported back in time. The year is 1620. The gentle hum of cicadas echoes softly through the misty valleys of rural Japan. The air carries the faint aroma of damp earth, pine needles, and distant wood smoke. You find yourself walking along a narrow dirt path, where smooth river stones crunch faintly beneath your feet. The morning sun is low on the horizon, and pale light filters through the thin fog. Bamboo groves sway gently in the breeze. It's quiet, almost still. In the distance, you see the silhouette of a small wooden estate surrounded by a high wall of timber. Inside lives a samurai family, disciplined, proud, and bound by honor, but burdened by constant responsibility. For many, the word samurai conjures images of heroic warriors wielding gleaming swords and living noble, privileged lives. But the reality was more complex. Beneath the surface of power and prestige lay hardship, sacrifice, and silent struggles. In this video, we will gently drift through the world of the samurai, their daily routines, their burdens, and secrets, and the hidden realities of a life bound by strict codes and relentless expectations. So, settle into a comfortable position. Let your mind wander, and let us begin. The samurai's day begins before dawn. Imagine the soft creak of sliding shoji doors as the household slowly awakens. A pale, cold light filters in through rice paper screens. The air is crisp, carrying the faint smell of tatami mats and sandalwood incense. A low wooden drum sounds faintly in the distance, not a call to battle, but a quiet reminder that the day's duties are about to begin. Before anything else, a samurai cleanses himself. He kneels before a shallow basin, dips his hands into cold water, and washes his face, not out of luxury, but discipline. This ritual is not about comfort, it is about readiness. Every movement is deliberate. Every gesture reflects an inner state of control. Breakfast is modest, a small bowl of steamed rice, a bit of pickled radish, perhaps a piece of grilled fish if the household is fortunate. Tea is brewed quietly, poured slowly and sipped in silence. Life for the samurai is governed by restraint. Even within the privacy of their home, there is little room for indulgence. By mid-morning, training begins. The sound of wooden swords, bokken, striking one another, echoes softly across the courtyard. For hours, the samurai practices precision, posture, and balance under the watchful eye of his instructor. These sessions are not dramatic. They are repetitive, quiet, and often exhausting. The body aches, the palms blister, and yet, the practice continues. To live as a samurai is to perfect control of the body and mind. Sometimes training includes archery, horseback riding, or the intricate rituals of katana maintenance. The sword is more than a weapon. It is an extension of the soul, a reflection of discipline and identity. But the samurai's life was not spent entirely on combat. Much of his time was consumed by administrative work, overseeing lands, collecting taxes, maintaining order among villagers. Paperwork, meetings, and reports filled as many hours as training did. A samurai was both a warrior and a bureaucrat, tied deeply to the machinery of feudal governance. This dual role created constant pressure. To fail in battle was shameful, but to fail in managing one's duties was equally dishonorable. Throughout the day, one unspoken force shapes every action: bushido, the way of the warrior. This strict ethical code governs how the samurai speaks, eats, trains, and even dies. Honor must be protected at all costs. Loyalty to one's lord is absolute. Disobedience, or failure, could bring shame upon an entire family. And shame was worse than death. The constant awareness of reputation, duty, and discipline makes the samurai's existence far less romantic than it might seem. Even small mistakes could have severe consequences. As dusk falls, the compound becomes silent once more. A simple evening meal is shared, usually rice, miso soup, and perhaps dried seaweed. By lamplight, the samurai may write poetry, practice calligraphy, or study philosophy. Before sleep, he carefully inspects his sword one last time, laying it within reach. The day ends as it began, with discipline, silence, and restraint. In the distance, the cicadas continue their endless song. The night is still. The burdens remain. The story of the samurai cannot be told without speaking of Miyamoto Musashi, a man whose life blended discipline, wandering, and quiet mastery. Born in 1584, Musashi came into the world during one of Japan's most turbulent periods. Civil wars still simmered across the land, and countless clans fought for power. From the moment of his birth, the weight of survival rested heavily upon him. But unlike many samurai, Musashi did not live a life of privilege. He was not born into wealth or influence. His father, a skilled swordsman, began training him when he was still a child, but the young Musashi's path would soon diverge from tradition. Imagine a young boy walking alone along the narrow, dusty roads of rural Japan. The air is warm, and in the distance, the faint sound of temple bells drifts through the mountains. By the age of 13, Musashi fought his first duel. It was said to be quiet, quick, and unceremonious. This early confrontation marked the beginning of a long journey, a life spent seeking mastery, not simply victory. Unlike other samurai who pledged unwavering loyalty to their lords, Musashi became a ronin, a masterless samurai. His choice set him apart, and it was not an easy path. Without a lord's protection, life was precarious, uncertain, and often lonely. One of Musashi's most famous moments came years later, during his legendary duel with Sasaki Kojiro. Imagine the scene. A mist-covered shoreline, pale morning light spreading across the sea. Musashi arrives late, walking calmly along the sand, a simple wooden sword in hand. It is quiet, no shouting, no chaos. Just the slow rhythm of waves, the soft rustle of the breeze, and the quiet breathing of two men preparing to face fate. In moments, the duel is over. Musashi wins, but there is no celebration. Victory carries no joy, only a deepening silence. This is the way of the warrior. Even triumph can feel empty. After this, Musashi's life became one of movement. He wandered the countryside, often sleeping outdoors beneath the stars, living on simple meals of rice and tea. He carried few possessions, yet his presence was unforgettable. Everywhere he traveled, he studied, not just the art of the sword, but painting, calligraphy, strategy, and philosophy. Musashi believed that true mastery came not from strength alone, but from understanding the patterns of life itself. His teachings would later be recorded in his famous work, The Book of Five Rings. Inside, he wrote of harmony, adaptability, and clarity, lessons not just for warriors, but for anyone seeking balance. Yet, even for Musashi, life was not without hardship. Behind his reputation, there was solitude. He had no permanent home, no family to return to, and no safe haven from the shifting tides of history. Being a samurai, even one as skilled as Musashi, meant carrying constant uncertainty. Honor demanded sacrifice, and survival often meant walking alone. In the final years of his life, Musashi withdrew to a quiet cave called Reigando, where he meditated, wrote, and prepared for the inevitable. He spent his last days in stillness, surrounded by silence and the soft rustle of wind through the trees. And there, far from battlefields and distant from the ambitions of men, Musashi's journey came to an end. Musashi's life reminds us that the samurai path, though admired, was rarely peaceful. It required strength, yes, but also patience, restraint, and the willingness to walk in solitude. As we leave Musashi's story behind, let us drift deeper into the hidden world of the samurai. Because beyond their battles and their daily routines, there are mysteries, secret rituals, unspoken codes, and cultural practices that shaped their inner lives. There is something almost timeless about the image of the samurai, a figure standing still beneath a quiet pine tree, the gentle weight of his armor resting upon his shoulders, the smooth curve of his sword at his side. And yet, Behind this calm exterior, there were layers of tradition and mystery, unseen by outsiders. To truly understand the samurai, we must step away from battlefields and duels, and instead enter the silent spaces where they prepared their minds, nurtured their spirits, and connected with something deeper than war itself. For the samurai, the sword, the katana, was far more than a weapon. It was a reflection of the soul. Imagine standing in a dimly lit workshop, where a master swordsmith shapes molten steel under faint orange light. The rhythmic sound of hammer striking metal fills the room, slow, steady, deliberate. Each strike carries meaning. Each fold of the blade binds together strength and flexibility, the essence of balance. When a katana was completed, it was not simply delivered like any ordinary tool. It underwent a quiet blessing. Priests would chant softly. Incense would fill the air. The sword became a living extension of the samurai himself, his duty, his honor, his inner spirit. For this reason, many samurai believed that to lose one's sword was to lose a part of oneself. To live as a samurai was to live with constant uncertainty. Wars could erupt without warning. Loyalties could shift overnight. And death could arrive quietly, without announcement. To face such a life required mental balance. For this, many turned to Zen Buddhism. Picture a small wooden temple deep in the hills. Inside, a group of samurai kneels upon tatami mats. Their armor rests against the wall, and the only sound is the faint trickle of water from a bamboo fountain outside. They sit in silence, breathing deeply, slowly, emptying the mind of all thought. Through this stillness, the samurai learned focus, to quiet fear, to see clearly, even in chaos. The teachings of Zen blended seamlessly with the code of bushido, the way of the warrior. Bushido taught loyalty, restraint, compassion, and self-discipline. It was not merely about fighting. It was about how to live and how to face death without trembling. Perhaps one of the most surprising aspects of samurai life was their devotion to something simple, something quiet. The tea ceremony. Imagine entering a tiny tea house. The door is so small that even a great warrior must bow before stepping inside. Shoes are removed, swords are left outside. Inside, the air is soft with the scent of matcha tea and freshly cut bamboo. The ceremony unfolds slowly like the turning of a page. Each motion, the folding of the cloth, the whisking of the tea, the offering of the cup, is precise, deliberate, and deeply symbolic. For the samurai, this ritual was a reminder. Even in a life filled with danger, there could still be moments of peace. It was a way to touch eternity in the smallest of gestures. The armor of the samurai was more than protection. It was a quiet language. The deep indigo blue of certain fabrics signified resilience. The crimson red of a crest symbolized courage and readiness to sacrifice. Some patterns were passed down for generations, carrying ancestral meaning. Even the way armor was polished before battle was a kind of meditation, a way of preparing the mind, not just the body. To the outside world, a samurai's appearance seemed fearsome, but within, there was often a quiet sadness, a recognition of impermanence, and a longing for stillness amid constant change. There were times when a samurai knew he might not return from battle. Before leaving, he would prepare carefully, almost ceremonially, a final bath to cleanse the body, a fresh white kimono, symbolizing purity, a personal poem written slowly by hand, reflecting on life and impermanence. These poems, called jisei, were often short, delicate, and deeply personal. They carried no fear, only acceptance, a quiet acknowledgement of life's passing seasons, like leaves falling gently into a river. Despite the power they held, the life of a samurai was not one of endless strength. There were doubts. There were regrets. There were quiet moments in the night when even the most skilled warrior questioned his place in the world. This is perhaps the greatest mystery of the samurai, that beneath the discipline and ritual they were human, moved by longing, touched by uncertainty, and searching for meaning just as we do. As the soft echoes of these hidden rituals fade, we step away from the private world of the samurai. And we turn now to another side of Japan's history, one less serene, yet deeply revealing. In our next and final segment, we will explore the world of contrasts, the gap between elite samurai life and the harsh, often overlooked struggles of peasants, merchants, and artisans who lived beneath their rule. It is here that we begin to understand the full weight of the samurai era, not just the legends, but the ordinary lives that made their world possible. While the samurai often stand at the center of Japan's historical memory, there were many more lives unfolding quietly in their shadow. To truly understand the world of the samurai, we must step beyond the castles and battlefields, into the villages, markets, and narrow streets where the majority of Japan's people lived. Imagine a small rice paddy, surrounded by low hills and misty forests. The soft sound of water trickles through narrow channels, feeding the tiny green shoots that will one day become rice. Here, peasants, the backbone of Japan's economy, bent low over the wet earth, season after season. Theirs was a life tied to the rhythm of nature and the will of the lords they served. Samurai relied on these farmers for their livelihood, yet the peasants' lives were far from free. Taxes were often harsh, collected in rice, and poor harvests could mean hunger, debt, or worse. And yet, within these struggles, there was a kind of quiet dignity. Communities worked together, children played in fields after long days of labor, and festivals brought brief bursts of joy to lives otherwise marked by routine and resilience. While peasants fed the land and samurai guarded it, a third group quietly shaped the economy from the edges, merchants and artisans. In bustling towns, small workshops produced lacquerware, silk kimonos, pottery, and intricate wooden carvings. These artisans carried forward Japan's long tradition of beauty and craftsmanship. Merchants, though officially ranked low in the social hierarchy, often became surprisingly wealthy through trade, dealing in rice, silk, and sake. Their success created quiet tensions between classes, as samurai, bound by honor, sometimes struggled financially, while merchants amassed hidden fortunes. Still, the worlds of samurai and merchant intersected more than one might expect. A fine sword, a suit of armor, a delicate tea set, all required skilled artisans whose work lasted generations. Without these invisible hands, the elegance and refinement of samurai culture could not exist. In the shadows of these systems, women's roles varied greatly depending on class and circumstance. For samurai families, women often managed the household, maintaining order, overseeing finances, and, in times of crisis, defending the home itself. Some trained in martial skills, learning to wield the naginata, a long curved spear to protect their families when men went to war. Among peasants and artisans, women's labor was constant and vital. They planted, harvested, sewed, wove, and tended to children. Their contributions, though rarely recorded, were essential to the survival of their families and communities. And yet, despite the centrality of their work, many women's voices were absent from the historical record, their stories carried instead through songs, poems, and the soft rhythms of daily life. Life in feudal Japan was a web of dependencies. Samurai protected their lords. Lords depended on peasants for rice. Peasants relied on artisans and merchants for tools and goods, and merchants relied on the demands of the ruling class to survive. It was a cycle of exchange, and yet, beneath the surface, there was constant tension. Famines could spark uprisings. Tax burdens led to quiet acts of resistance. And behind the walls of great castles, political rivalries simmered endlessly. But through all of this, there was also continuity, shared rituals, seasonal festivals, and deep-rooted traditions that tied these classes together into one intricate, enduring culture. As we step back from these lives, the warriors and peasants, merchants and artisans, women tending their homes, children running through narrow village lanes, we begin to see the fragile thread that connected them all. Cherry blossoms fall softly in spring, a fleeting reminder of beauty and impermanence. The samurai understood this deeply, And so did the farmers, the monks, the merchants, and the craftsmen. In many ways, the entire structure of society was built upon a shared awareness of passing seasons, of life's cycles, and of the quiet dignity of enduring what cannot be changed. And so, as we leave behind the dusty roads and quiet markets, the castle walls and hidden temples, we carry with us a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to live in the age of the samurai. It was a life of honor and hardship, of discipline and beauty, of struggle and serenity intertwined. Now let us take a final moment to reflect on this world from a distance, on what remains, and what has gently faded into history. And so, our quiet journey through the world of the samurai comes to an end. We have walked the narrow paths between rice fields, stood beneath towering castle walls, listened to the soft whisper of steel being drawn from its sheath, and watched cherry blossoms drift silently to the ground. We have seen warriors bound by honor and duty, peasants tied to the rhythm of the seasons, merchants weaving silent wealth from bustling markets, and women balancing household strength with quiet sacrifice. All of their lives, woven together like threads of silk, formed the fabric of a world long past, a world both fragile and enduring. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine the stillness of a misty morning in feudal Japan. The air is cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of pine and earth. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rings softly, its sound lingering like a fading dream. The samurai rise with the dawn, their armor waiting by the door. A farmer steps into the flooded paddies, his reflection trembling in the shallow water. A merchant carefully unlocks his wooden shop, while a craftsman dips his brush into black ink, preparing to carve meaning into a simple sheet of paper. The entire country moves together, bound by unspoken rules, quiet rituals, and the endless passage of time. Centuries have passed since these lives were lived. The swords have rusted, the castles have crumbled, and the footsteps on those narrow dirt roads have long been erased by rain and wind. And yet, something remains. In the poetry written under lantern light, in the gardens where stone and moss still rest in balance, in the way cherry blossoms are celebrated each spring, marking the impermanence of all things. The samurai may have gone, but the echoes of their world still breathe around us, in the silence between moments, in the discipline of craft, in the quiet dignity of enduring change. As you lie here now, perhaps with your eyes closed, let the past settle gently in your mind like falling petals. The stories we've touched tonight, of hardship, loyalty, beauty, and survival, belong to a world far from ours. And yet, in subtle ways, they continue to shape the present we live in. Time carries everything forward, but history, when we pause to listen, offers us a soft reminder that life, no matter the century, is always a fragile balance between struggle and serenity, duty and desire, moments we hold on to, and moments we let go. Breathe slowly. Let your thoughts wander, like a drifting leaf on a quiet river. The world of the samurai grows distant now, fading into soft shadows, until it becomes nothing more than a gentle whisper of memory. Thank you for joining me on this journey tonight, for walking through the forgotten paths of history and sharing in the quiet rhythm of lives long past. May this calm remain with you, carrying you into a peaceful, untroubled sleep. Good night. And until next time, rest well.